What I got here is possibly the most famous Indian athletes ever in the history of any kind of sport is Jack and Jerry Brisco. The greatest Indian athletes, and believe me, hi, how are you? Hi, I wanted you to feel at home. I brought you both a little bone for the nose. There's one for you, a tiny little bone for the nose for you. Maybe you can scramble them, Piper.
We didn't come here for your sarcasm. We came here for business. We came here for one thing.
Oh, you sit. You came for business. Well, sit down. Sit down. Let me tell you something. What possibly could I be arraigned with that the actual heavyweight tag team champions of the world twice, the world's heavyweight champions twice, could come on Piper's Pit? All of a sudden, maybe I realize something. Maybe the reason that you're coming here is just to have a little recognition by sitting next to Roddy Piper, because after all, let's face it, I know you were great world tag team champions, but now you're just sitting here just kind of trying to get a rub, aren't you, man? Come on, let's face it.
Let me tell you, Piper.
What are you here for?
You use double-edged blades and maybe I'll get a rub. But one thing we're here for, brother, and that's the World Tag Team Champions. There's one title that's eluded the Briscoe brothers throughout our career. It's no longer for the bucks, it's for the glory. We want Murdoch and we want Adonis.
Oh, you want my... I know that it took lots and lots and lots and lots of money to get you guys here. And all of a sudden you want Murdoch and you want Adonis. I'm personal friends with them. They owe me stuff. They owe me cars. They owe me women. You want a match? I can get you one. But let me tell you something. I watch all kinds of cowboy shows, and the only Indians I ever seen was the back end running, brother. That's all I ever seen.
Nobody makes fun of our heritage. You said you can make this match?
I'll make it.
Well, you go get it done. You get out of that skirt and go get that match made.
From title belts to Hall of Fame, Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, pride. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Our guys kings ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and what an episode we have for you today. Doug, tell everybody who's joining us, man.
Man, Gene, usually Tommy cuts in before I can even say a word, but this week maybe I can get started first. Man, we've got somebody on here that I really look up to, and when I was growing up as a kid, I thought was one of the greatest, and it would be none other than Jerry Brisco. I'm so happy to have him on this show today, and man, like I said, I looked up to Jerry and his brother Jack, and to me, as far as families in the wrestling business, that'd be like one of the top families ever in the wrestling business. And man, I've heard so many stories about Jerry and from my brother, my dad, and Tommy's like on here with us. He can, I'm sure he's got a lot of stories himself, but I mean, I'm just so happy to have Jerry on here with us today.
Well, Doug, thank you very much, man. That's awesome.
Good deal, Jerry. Like I said, we really appreciate you being on here. And like I said, I'm sure Gene here, like I told you before, me and you was talking about a few different things. And I was telling you about Gene is kind of like my John, which your John is with you on your podcast most of the time, JBL. Gene is kind of my John. He's just about a foot shorter. And like he said, I don't think he quite throws as good of a clothesline as John does.
That'd be hard to do because John got that clothesline, and the great thing about that, it's him and Stan Hansen. I mean, when John was a young guy, and John was over in Japan, Stan was over there, they talked about it, and Stan just blessed him and just told him do it a little bit different and do it justice when you do it. And I think he does a little bit different. And I damn know he does justice when he hits it. And it looks like he's taking the guy's head off there.
It most definitely does. Hey, Jerry, just to kind of start this off, was there a territory, which I mean, I know you and your brother Jack went, I think, all over the world and everything. Was there, I know in Florida, y'all drew a ton of money. Y'all drew a ton of money everywhere. But was there a territory that was your favorite that you would say?
Oh yeah, well, I was fortunate we did come up in the territory days. I was very fortunate when I come along where I had some really good mentors, and I worked. If you want to say what was my favorite one, I got to say Jim Barnett's early Australia, 1970-73 era. I spent 1971 down there, and part of 72, or part of 70, and all of 71 down there. And Jim made me some super money and took care of me. And that's really where I learned to define a little bit of my work, because Jim was surrounded down there by Madison Square Garden legends. I mean, Mario Milano, the great Spiro Cerrion, Dominic DiNucci, Killer Carl Cox, Mark Lewin, King Curtis, Gary Hart, Rip Hawk, Swede Hansen, Brute Menard. All those guys were there when I was breaking in. So they took a liking to me for some reason, and they were great mentors to me. So that's where it was. I mean, I had success in other territories, but that's where I kind of honed what I wanted to do and honed in a kind of a style that I wanted.
Gosh.
Man, I've heard it. I mean, that's funny you said that, Jerry. Because, I mean, you ask any of the older guys that never went to Australia, man, they always, that's somewhere I wish I'd have got to go. I mean, because I always heard it was so cool and everything. And all them names you just mentioned, man, that's a cast of characters there.
Oh, man, that's true, Tommy.
Oh, it sure is, Jerry. And that's a cool answer, one that I wasn't expecting for you to say. But Mr. Barnett, I've got so much respect for Mr. Barnett, and Tommy's right here too, and I know he does. And yeah. Like I said, Mr. Barnett was real cool to me, and it was kind of on his last run there in Atlanta when I was getting started, where I was around him, which Tommy was around him really early in his career. And Tommy, what was it when you went to Atlanta? When would that have been, 79 maybe? Or
70, yeah, about 79 is when I first went. And Mr. Barnett, he said, yeah, I mean, that was it. Plus, Georgia was just so cool. You had the TBS, and that's the first time. I mean, I'd seen Jerry and them, I'd seen Jerry and Jack both, but that was the first time I met them. They come in, they'd come into the TV, and then they had the big office show, and Jack and Jerry was in the tag match that night. I don't remember who they wrestled, but I just remembered, that they was there. And as a matter of fact, I think we went out afterwards and had a few beers.
I believe we were there. That's one thing Tommy always made us feel at home. We go to Georgia or wherever Tommy was, we'd go one in there. Tommy was a brother. I mean, Tommy wasn't one of these, in wrestling, there's two different types of people. You make acquaintance, a lot of acquaintance in this business, guys that you meet, they're good guys, and you like them, you like traveling with them. Then there's guys that are your friends that you travel with every day, that you share your stories with, you share your hardships with. Tommy was one of those guys. He was a brother. I mean, he's a competitor, but he was a brother too. And I hope he feels the same way about Jack and I, because I know my brother Jack loves him.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I mean, they come in and it was just, and I was in awe too, because I still, I was a youngster. I mean, I was youngsters too, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're going way back. So, but, they were so nice to me. They didn't know me mad. And just was super nice. We became super good friends. Shoot, I even rented the Jack. They had a condo there in Atlanta. That me and Jerry, Par 4, I think it was called. You remember Jerry? We rented the condo from.
Yeah, and Tommy was really the only one. I rented my condo out to 3 different wrestlers. Tommy was the only one that ever paid me rent, man. I love him.
Oh, that's great. Hey, but
Hey, I'm not telling you, he always paid in cash, but he always paid me rent.
hey, you can't beat that. And listen, Tommy, listen to this story. And like this was around 80 or so. My brother was in Kansas City, and I was telling Jerry this story, and it really got over me. Which Tommy, you know Eddie very well, and Jerry did too, I think. And but anyway, so my dad and Eddie was in the Kansas City territory. Well, you know, they would bring guys like Jerry and Jackie in, and like all the top NWA different guys, you know, they kind of filtered. Me and Jerry had talked about this a little bit through the Kansas City territory. And so there was a tag team tournament, and Jerry said he thought it was like the second round or something, that him and his brother was against my dad and my brother. And so Eddie told me one time that he was about getting ready to go to the ring, and that him and my dad hadn't talked with Jack or Jerry, either one. And, you know, Eddie was going, Dad, we need to go and talk to those guys. And my dad said, nah, don't worry about it. And so Eddie said he sat there a little bit and listened to him, and he said he thought, if Dad don't go over there, I'm going anyway, and I'm going to talk to him and see what's going on here in this match. So Eddie walked over there. He said to Jerry, and he said, sir, he said, do you want me to do anything? And he said that Jerry looked at him, and he said, Jack looked at him, and Jerry said, you better lace your boots up tight, and we'll see you in the ring. And he said about that time, he said they didn't say nothing else, just stared at him. And he said he walked away, and he said his eyes probably was big as $50. And he said he walked back over there, and he said, my dad said, did you go talk to him? He said, yeah. And he said, what'd they tell you? He said, they told me I better lace my boots up tight. And I told Jerry that, and Jerry said, well, be honest, your dad told us don't say nothing.
Oh, I can see Tommy. Yeah, I can see your dad too. Yeah, hanging it up.
Yeah, but I thought that was something cool. But Eddie saying, you know, Eddie was just 19 years old then. I could see him, and, you know, with all the respect he had for Jerry and Jack both.
Yeah.
And Tommy, what it was, we knew Eddie was the only one that would sell, you know.
But I think Jerry wound up going on to tell me that they wound up in the next round. I think it was like, wasn't it like, didn't y'all wrestle like either, was it Dusty and Murdoch or somebody?
Yeah,
like
it was Texas Outlaw, Dusty and Murdoch. Yeah, and what a good time that was. I mean, I don't know if you ever shared the ring with those two guys, but man, it was magic. I mean, they, you know, because they were big guys, you could sell really good, and you know, they were big guys, so when they bumped, it really meant something. So you got to sell, you got to set up everything, you got to set up those hot tags, and because they were so aggressive and it's so believable. And then when I gave the hot tag to my brother Jack, listen to that. I tell you, I sold it. I gave it because he was older.
Yes,
and
sir.
Man, they would fly like crazy, man. I mean, it was one of those matches. But going back to the match with your dad, and your brother, man, that was a great match. I mean, it was a mix of combination, and you know, they were babies. We just had to be a little bit more aggressive with them and everything. They worked their asses. They laced their boots up tight, man. They came to play.
Hey, well, that's cool. Tommy, you got any idea who won that tournament?
Probably the Briscos.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Jack and Jerry.
And we couldn't figure that out because we didn't want to go back to Kansas City, and we didn't want to work Kansas City. Yeah.
Is that not great? Well, listen, Gene, we kept you quieter longer this episode than we ever have before. I guess we need to let you say something here, right?
Well, I'm sure nobody's complaining about that, but so I was doing some research, Mr. Briscoe, and I saw where May 19th, 1975, Columbus, Georgia. You teamed with Mr. Tommy Gilbert, and you guys defeated Jerry Lawler and Don Green. Do you have any recollection of that match?
No, I don't, but it pisses Jerry Lawler off every time somebody says I beat him. And, the only record that shows where he ever beat me was in Memphis, Tennessee with his own damn referees, and I beat him in like 4 or 5 different states. So I'm glad you brought that up, King. I beat you again.
Oh, that's great.
I found that and I said, well, that's perfect because he tagged with Mr. Tommy Gilbert and he beat Jerry Lawler. Everybody's going to be happy with this one.
Well, Tommy probably took the fall. That way Lawler could get out of it. You didn't beat me, Tommy beat me.
Oh, that's funny.
So speaking of Jerry Lawler, so how do you feel about snitches? Do you think, you have a problem with people snitching on things? Do you think that's a bad trait, or is that cool?
Well, I tell you what, I hope Tommy Wildfire can back me up. I hate snitches, and I did enough on my own, I used to get criticism from certain guys in the office, initials OA, that I wouldn't stooge on the boards when I was at the office running that wild territory. Hell, I couldn't stooge on the damn guys. I was right there with them. So if I was stooging on the guys, I was stooging on myself. But yeah, stooges to me had no place in our business. Right, Tommy?
The reason I asked is, Jerry Lawler's been saying for years he beat your brother for the NWA World Title, and then you told on him that he used a chain.
He said that. Hey, Gene.
Not only did he use the chain, he used powder too to blind my damn brother.
Well, that's what I was going to ask y'all too about, Gene. Was I remember the one week, which I wasn't sure what the deal was, but I thought I remember it happening. But the match went by like 30 seconds or something. But it was right when the bell had rung or something. Then he threw powder. That would have been the first time that Jack would have probably wrestled. Lawler would have been the powder time deal, and that was about 30 seconds was all that match was, right?
Right, and then on this was in '74, and then on the 16th they had the match where then Lawler used the chain, and then and Mr. Jerry told him what happened. They reversed the decision, and Lawler's been mad about it ever since.
He's been mad about it.
He's had this going on.
Yeah.
Hey,
but and Lawler and I came back, and Lawler likes to say it had the biggest drop money wise, but it had a big drop money wise because we didn't charge that extra $1 for the championship match, Right. But we had more people, but the 14,000, 15,000 people were in there. It made the money a little bit lower. He never let me forget it. He held my brother out for me. King is like a king, and Tommy can back this up, and Doug can't do it. If King gets something on you, he never lets you forget it. Man. He got a good memory like that. But if you got something on him, he forgets it right away.
Oh yeah, if you got it on him, it didn't really ever happen, right, Jerry?
Yeah. And he's got his own record book, all you got to do is, he can pull it out and tell you everything that happened. Yeah, damn right.
Oh, man, that's good.
Something else I noticed when I was doing some research, and in 1976, you worked quite a bit with a young guy named Frank Goodish before he took on his Bruiser Brody persona. Did he stand out to you at that point as someone who just really had it and was going to go on to be a big star?
Oh God, did he ever, Gary? A guy you just tell him, he had that magic, he had that money look about him right from the first time he walked through those doors in Florida. And I kind of really liked working with him, and he was as green could be at the time. So he was still 6'8", 6'9", whatever, 330 some pounds, and he was awkward to work with. So they sent guys like that down here to Florida to work with guys like me and my brother and Mike and Steve and some of those guys that could go that were also decent teachers in the ring. And Frank become a killer down here, and I always got along with. I never had a cross word with Frank Goodish or Bruiser Brody. I loved him to death, and I think the feeling was beautiful.
Jerry, that's one of the things I told Gene before. I graduated from high school in 1987. I started the next day after that working for Bill Watts, and I had the opportunity actually before I got out of the high school, and it was at a Jerry Blackwell show that Tommy was booking, and it was we said before, I can't even remember the name of it, but a guy come in and was going to work against Brody, and he looked up at the card on the wall and he saw he was going to have to wrestle Brody, and he grabbed his bag back up and he walked out the door and left. So Tommy come by a little later. I saw the guy leave, and I thought, what'd that guy leave for? You know, he didn't work yet or anything. So a little bit later on, Tommy walks by. Tommy's booking for Blackwell, and he said, "Hey, you want to work?" I said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Okay." I said, "Who am I
What a
working
friend.
with?" Tommy had put me against Frank. Well, at the time, Eddie and Brody was upstairs getting. I walked upstairs, and I guess it's one of them deals like with you, Jerry, and my brother. My brother come and try to talk to you, but I went up to Frank and I stuck out my hand, and he shook my hand. I said, "How you doing, Doug Gilbert? I'm Eddie's brother and Tommy's son." And he just said, "Hey," and him and Eddie kept talking. Well, I walked back down the stairs and went back to the dressing room. So it got time for the match. I thought, I hadn't said anything to him about the match. But, so I go to the ring, and I thought, well, just, whatever, he said, if he talks.
Yeah, whatever he wants,
says,
yeah.
Right. That's what I will do. And man, you hear all the nightmare stories and everything, and everybody's got their own opinions of people like I do and you do also, but man, it was so easy and so good. And the finish of the match, everybody told me, said, well, he's going to kick your head. Them guys in the dressing room, he's going to kick your head off, or he's going to do this. You know what he did for a finish, Jerry? He suplexed me. Just that was hit, but it was. I mean, he was so nice to me and everything. That's my memory of Frank and everything. But I mean, he was always good friends with my brother and my dad and everything. But I mean, that's my memories of Frank and everything, and always being a good guy. And Tommy had told me stories about Tommy.
Yeah, I mean, I got to know him real good when he come down to work for Jerry. He'd come out and stay at my house, stay with me. And, when I first met him, I was like, I was like, that reputation. And, but he talked about building his kids a tree house and just stuff because he road so much. But yeah, Florida, I mean, a good family man and great person. I mean, if he didn't like you, he didn't like you. But I mean, we like him.
Yeah, it was something. There were Doug and Tommy, during our days. There were so many intimidating guys in our business, and you just had to, if you were smart, you knew who they were, of course, and you tried to work with them. You tried to figure out, how you could do with them. I just, if we got time, a funny story happened to me and Jack in Puerto Rico. The first time we ever saw the Samoa Alpha and Sika. They will weigh about 340 pounds, maybe 350 a piece. Do you remember when they got real big back in the old days there? They were down in Puerto Rico. They let their hair go out like this. And Jack and I were working against them. We hadn't met them. We hadn't even ever seen them or met them or anything. And all of a sudden, we're booked in Puerto Rico where anything goes. And so we're in the ring, and all of a sudden, we're waiting on them. And, all of a sudden, I see this river of Puerto Ricans part, and it's the Samoans coming out, pushing all the Puerto Ricans out of the way. People are scattered, turning over chairs, falling down there. Man, I look and holy, that intimidation, the goosebumps go down your body. I looked at my brother Jack, and I said, Jack, what are we going to do? And he looked at me, he said, any damn thing they want to do. So I learned how to work with those intimidating guys right away, man. I just, whatever they want, I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it well.
I got you, and that's great, Jerry. And what about, I thought of one of the things that we was talking about that me and you talked about, and I thought it was great because, like, as far as the history and everything, you said that as far as I knew, y'all been in Florida and drew a ton of money, you and your brother, but me and you talked a little bit about Eddie Graham, and what'd you say the story, and I popped, was that the only time that Eddie ever got hot at Jack, what was it? Eddie told somebody to do something, and Jack told him if they didn't do what he said, he'd kick their ass or something, and they done it. Wasn't that the
I think that was with King Louis Tillette about the blade jobs, because Eddie told Jack and I both never do blade jobs. You guys sell too good to do the blade job. If you sell it, won't. If you get the juice, it really won't matter. So Louis Tillette took it on his own. Louis was booking, of course, and so. Man, he told Jack he's gonna blade him that night. And he said, "Well, you better call Eddie." Fuck Eddie, I'm the booker. I can do what I want to. So he bladed Jack, and of course the news got to Eddie before Jack got home. Man, the next morning Eddie calling Jack. Next morning he was pissed at Jack for allowing it. You're mad enough. You just don't allow it. Jack said, "Well, I didn't know what was coming. I didn't or anything like that. Guy, good blade man, a good blade man." Louis was a good blade man. So anyway, Eddie called Louis, and he threatened to fire him right there on the spot. He said, "If you ever do that again, I'll fire you." He said, "He's our money ticket. He's our meal ticket. Don't you do stuff like that."
Oh, that's great. Yeah, but I thought me and Jerry talked a little bit, and that come up, but just their relationship with Eddie Graham. I knew y'all had to have a great relationship with Eddie, because like I said, y'all drew a ton of money for him, and I mean, and I always heard y'all was really good friends and everything. But Jerry, y'all drew, like I said, coming into Kansas City, they would bring y'all in there and all the different territories. But that's why I wasn't sure. Is there a territory that say yourself or Jack didn't go to, or I mean, y'all made the rounds, right? Basically everywhere.
We never went up for Verne, because we wanted to go to Verne one time, and Jack called Verne, and Jack, Verne was a national champion. My brother was a national champion. I was a pretty accomplished amateur wrestler too. Right. Verne told us we were too small to work his territory, and that always pissed Jack and I off about not being able to go up to work Verne's territory there.
Is that right? Ain't that something? Yeah. Because like I always said, and I think Tommy agreed with this, I mean, I've always heard that anytime you and Jack went into any territories, and it's like I had spoke with John about you and Jack being the tough guys, which Jerry laughed at me when I said that. I said, but Jerry and Jack coming in, that Gene, this was the tough guys. They can say what they want or whatever, but the guys that could tie you up and make you look silly if they wanted to. I mean,
if you had to, but why? There was no need for that, and fortunately, I mean, Tommy can tell you, neither one of us wanted to be that tough guy. Neither one of us. I mean, that wasn't our personality. We were blessed. We had a good skill, and we could wrestle, and we were taught to wrestle. We both wrestled all of our damn life. There wasn't a guy in the business that could out wrestle us. I mean, we knew that, and we believed that. And when you believe it and know it, and you have that skill, you got confidence. But we never wanted to be that. When Eddie and promoters would say, "Go in there and beat a guy up," we'll go in and blow their asses up and hurt them a little bit, but we ain't going to hurt them permanently. We ain't going to maim them or anything like that. We're just going to blow their asses up and make them wish they never got in that ring,
Right.
So, but yeah, Jack, right, Tommy? Jack didn't have that personality at all.
Oh, neither one of you had that personality. I mean, everybody knew y'all could wrestle, and so there wasn't no question to that. But Jack, Jerry both, I mean, they just had to go lucky folk just like Briscos. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I met him at the first time. I mean, shit. Known them ever since, and they never had a ill word with each other or nothing.
Well, and that's what I think, and I think both of them was great guys, and like I looked up to as a kid and everything. But I think the perception of y'all being guys that could tie people in knots and everything, I think, like Tommy said, and I don't think you heard it a minute ago, he said, "Shit, all the boys believed it that if they wanted to do it, that they could," and that's I think y'all's perception as far as just coming in if somebody didn't know y'all because they had done heard that. But was there, like you said about Australia, was there other territories, Jerry, that you had rather? Because I love about these podcasts, and I love just talking like with me and you and Tommy and Gene talking about the territories, because I love the days when I was a kid and I got to go to the different territories and visit my dad when I was young, when you had all the territories going. Was there a couple other territories that was kind of more of your favorite than not?
Yeah, I love Mid-Atlantic. I love working for Crockett. I worked for the old man when I was young. The old man really is the first one that really recognized I could do something for him, and it gave me that opportunity. So I got so close to the family. I was pallbearer at Jim Crockett Sr.'s memorial service. So it was a big honor, and so I loved it there. The only regret I think I ever had, I think I left there too early one time, and but then, when I was getting ready to quit, Jack was getting ready to quit. Jimmy brought us in. There was one title that we never had, and that was the World Tag Team match. We never had that World Tag Team Championship until the end of our career, because we were never in a position. We were always doing something different than trying to go for. But we were both at the end of their careers, and we both knew what we wanted to do. So Jimmy was kind enough to bring us in. We had to fight tooth and nail to turn heel, because Jimmy did not want to turn heel. And and they run 3 towns a night, and baby faces are hard to get over. Jack and I were over, so we were always the top of one of those 3 towns. We were always the top draw. And so when we went to Jimmy and told him, Ricky Steamboat's really the one that initiated the move. We were traveling with him one night, coming back from Raleigh or somewhere like that, one of those road trips, and we were having a good time. And they had just finished up that fantastic program with Sergeant Slaughter and Don Cornudo, where they were selling out everywhere. They had nobody to work with, and they were getting ready to rehash something. And Ricky knew that Jack and I had turned semi-heel here in Florida and worked with Mike Brown and Steve Kern. And so he said, why don't we do something like that up here? And we both said, yeah, that sounds good, because we didn't really have anybody to work with at that time either, except rehashing old feuds, and that's never any good, as you know.
And Jerry, you're talking about Steamboat and Youngblood, right? When they was attacked.
Yeah, Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, from Mid-Atlantic, yeah. And so we went to Crockett. The 4 of us went to Crockett at TV day and told Crockett what we wanted to do. And he said he reacted like we thought he would. No, I need all the baby faces I can. I got plenty of heel, but I need baby faces. And so we were persistent. We didn't give up on him. And finally he said, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll see what I did, but it's got to be different. And I think we come up with one of the most unique angles that they'd say. We didn't make it about a feud, we made it about the tag team belts, and we made it known that we'd never had them before, and we were there to get them. And when we got them, we were going to take them home to Florida and screw them. They'd never see those belts again. So we made the belts mean something. So I think that's the reason that feud really skyrocketed like it did, because of the belts, and because of the 4 guys in there giving the match to the fans every night. But it was basically over the belt, and it was a fantastic angle. One of my most enjoyable that I had, besides with the Funks. I mean, the Funks lasted like 25 years, so that was a great one too.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com. And to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to uswapodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to llisten to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Well, and now you've jumped into something that I was actually going to get to, and I figured at some point here we would get to it. And Gene would probably know the dates and everything, but as far as yourself and Jack and Dory and Terry, did y'all work? I mean, I'm sure y'all probably all worked together. I know y'all did in the States, but in Japan also, did y'all work against like in tag teams in Japan also, Jerry?
Oh, only one time did we work against each other in Japan, and I never could figure that out. But Jack and Terry and Jack and Dory and Terry and Dory and Terry, we all intermingled as tag teams over there, which was kind of strange. And I just don't think they wanted to once again break character with us, because
right.
They had a certain amount of group, and I just don't think they wanted to break that character. That's something I do regret, because I know it got over everywhere in the world that we worked. I mean, Puerto Rico, Mexico, everywhere, and Canada, the States, and every state. So we knew it would work down there, but we just never got that opportunity to do it in Japan. And I think even the people over there probably regret it to this day.
And I think so too, and I also think, though, the reason being, which you know how different as far as the Japan and Japanese people and the wrestling fans are, but I would almost kind of think too, and which this might not be so, but with you and your brother being such big baby faces, and Terry and Dory being such big baby faces, I would almost think in Japan they would be kind of scared that. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say.
Well, that's what I meant when they didn't want us to break character, because it's the same argument we got with Crockett.
Right.
He didn't want to give up the babyface side of us, and Japan was the same way. Jack more so than me. Jack had such a tremendous godlike presence in Japan that they didn't want to tarnish that, and so and we didn't really push it, because we were the guys that, we enjoyed Japan, enjoyed the payoffs and all that stuff, but it wasn't one of our bread baskets where we went to Japan and kind of depended on that. Like a lot of talent during my era, they depended on. We always did good in our respective territory, and there was not that need financially to go over to Japan.
Yeah, y'all wasn't ever looking for anywhere to go, right? You had somewhere all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the thing: what about Jerry? And I don't know this. Gene probably would, but did you and Jack go to the Funk's territory and work against them any out there? Like, I know y'all went everywhere, but did y'all go out there to West Texas and work with them some out there?
Oh man, yeah, Doug, that was so fantastic too, because They would come to Florida. Or vice versa. They'd come to Florida. We'd film an angle. We'd follow like old school TV. You follow that angle around the TV, and we're packing houses every night. And of course, they were the heels, and we were the good guys here in Florida.
Right.
We would use those same videos, and Gordon Soley would just announce them a little bit different, or they would move voiceovers out in Texas, where now we're the heels and they're the baby faces, and we'd do the same type of matches. Both teams weren't outright heels. We just pushed the limits of what a baby face can do, and if you're working against a local baby face and you're pushing that limit, all of a sudden you're a badass. You're the guy that they want to boo. And so we would figure out that limit that we could push it to without being outright heels, because people would mind if we were outright heels, because we wasn't built that way. But it was all psychological deal with us, and how we worked.
And here's the great thing to me about that, Jerry, with us sitting here talking about the territories. Basically, it was the territory days, but y'all was almost doing like a national TV, one taping, but carrying it to every territory without it being a national TV, but it being the territory days and carrying it from one territory to another, and drawing a ton of money. And that's what I love so much, and what's so great and shows how smart y'all guys were.
Well, we just did it's the timing of one thing, Doug, and the combination. But we came along at an era where air travel had become really convenient. Before that, the guy were trains and buses and stuff like that. And that's really sounding like we're old, but we were coming along and not only were airplanes in the major cities, but you go to the Amarillos, you could go to Lubbock's, and you could go to West Palm Beaches and Orlando's, in the side towns, and we could fly. It made it so much easier. So and then like also the advent of cable TV that Tommy's so familiar with. The advent of cable TV kind of gave you that, but you had promoters who worked together like Eddie and Geigel and Dory Senior and Crockett. They would ship, if they had an angle, they would ship it around. It was the same in Carolina with Hawk and Hance. Hawk and Hance would come to Florida to work with the Briscos. We'd go to the Carolinas and work with Hawk and Hance, and so it was just that agreement. And I still to this day I respected that, even though it's down trade because I sold out, but I sold out for a different reason. That the MWA respected each other so much that they were willing to do that, and we were one of the few that got to travel like that, and one of the early trendsetters in that. I felt privileged for that.
Man, I think
that NWA, man, that was the promoters were, man. That is going back. I mean, they were close knit, and like y'all were talking earlier, though, just the psychology for y'all to know that y'all could do that. I mean, I think the psychology back then, it's a different horse today, but the psychology back then to me, just going out there, like you're saying, not saying a word, just going out there and having a match. Them days are gone, man. There's an art, man. And the Briscos, y'all were some of the best at it.
And I definitely agree with Tommy.
Thank you. Yeah, what I keep saying, and Tommy was the same era, but we were so blessed to be in that era because you could experience, different styles. I mean, Florida to Kansas City was a different style. Florida and Amarillo was a different style. Even the Carolinas and Georgia, they were different philosophies. So you got to travel to those areas. And we're fortunate because when we traveled, we did come in. We got to work with the top guys. So we got that psychology of the local territory there. And if you were smart, you took those little bits and pieces of that and you took them back to your home territory and you incorporated it. So you'd be a little bit different. So we had the opportunity. I mean, just from going to St. Louis, I stole so much stuff from St. Louis and took it back to Florida that I'd be ashamed of myself if I told you everything that I stole from them. But I learned so much just going to different territories and picking up bits and pieces because I knew if those guys came, they wouldn't be there for a while, and I would be a step above them. So it was my shit then, you know.
There you go, Jerry. And like Tommy, at the time he went to Atlanta, and that was a good time in his career and everything. But Tommy, I mean, when you went to Atlanta, I mean, like I said, you got to be around guys like Jerry and his brother Jack. I mean, you was around a lot of the top guys, right?
Oh yeah, Dusty. I mean, Terry Thor would come in. I mean, Ken Patel. I mean, King Kong. I mean, anybody come through Atlanta because, like Jerry said, everybody wanted to be on that Atlanta TV because it went all over the country. You know, so the best come through there, and like Jerry said, for some reason they all just couldn't like it to me, and I listened, and that's all I did was listen. And yes, sir, you know they all helped me so much. I mean, Jack, Jerry, I mean, Dusty, I mean, they come in, and like I said, we go do business in the matches, and then we go out and have a good time afterwards, and it was good because they come in every so often, and I always look forward because I knew we would have a good time afterwards, you know.
Yeah, Tommy, those days they were so wonderful. I mean, I know Dusty really had a shine for you too. I mean, everybody did because you were such a good guy. Not only were you a good guy, but you were drawing a ton of money for us. So that made a difference. But they put you in that position for a reason because they knew you could handle the job. And that's the only reason you were in there. When people say, well, you don't win anything. But when you go into a territory, you're working to win the promoter or the booker's favor. You're working to win his trust. Once you can win a promoter or booker's trust, they can put you in certain positions. You can draw for them. Then you got it made, and then it's up to you to make sure you keep that trust and keep working hard and not slack off. And Tommy always worked his butt off where you could look at him. All right, I know I can put him in a main event in Omni and sell out, and I know I can take the same match and put it in the main event in Columbus, Ohio with Tommy Rich and Freebird and sell the damn place out. And then that was the philosophy. Only Ederson was brilliant at that. Only could read to these guys, and he could know when a guy got hot and everything. And he was good at picking at the right time to move him up. And when they moved Tommy up, Only wasn't a Tommy believer in the beginning. I mean, he don't have nothing, And all of a sudden, man, those people, those girls, and those guys, they started screaming for Tommy Rich every time. All of a sudden, man, we got something, and let's go. Only we've been telling you forever, and boom, Tommy was a major star, and probably the hottest guy in the United States and America during that time frame.
You're exactly right, Jerry, and I've told Tommy that. But what he's told me, and at different times, was when guys like yourself and your brother come in, and I mean, they was doing good business, but he had told me that, but you was almost like guaranteed if they brought y'all guys in. I mean, they was doing good business, but you was almost guaranteed to sell out because it was just y'all guys was so over and everything off the different TVs and all the TVs around, and everybody believed in y'all, and the credibility of that is what made y'all so great. Now, like I said, that's what myself, my brother, and all us guys had so much respect. And like Tommy said, you was so good to him, and him being a young guy then and everything. But
so, Mr. Briscoe, I got to ask a follow-up question here. People may think I'm a jerk for saying this, but you mentioned earlier that that Verne Gagne said the Briscoe brothers weren't big enough to come to his territory. Now, how did you and Jack feel down the line when you turned the TV on and saw Greg Gagne in the ring at one point? You guys weren't big enough.
That's how I feel. I'm doing right now, laughing. I mean, I love Greg Gagne, and I respect the hell out of Greg. It wasn't Greg's fault. I mean, but we kind of elbowed each other. Hey, you see what? We're not big enough, and look there. And we have a little bit better credentials besides being a guy's work.
And he was a good worker, but just as fine.
Oh, yeah.
Off my mind when he said we weren't big enough. I'm like,
yeah,
Greg.
And the thing about it, we booked Greg and Verne down here in Florida. They were going to come down and ride off a vacation, Florida vacation. We'd book them down there with no problem. As a matter of fact, that's the reason I worked up the balls. We worked up the balls to ask for him because we brought him in, him and Greg in down here, and pulled them over and made them feel like they're champions. And respect that they should have been paid because of their position in another territory. But then they come in, well, we just did them. Let's call them, it'd be good to get a little refresher and and by the way, it wasn't wintertime, it was summertime. So we made the call, and Verne wouldn't even talk to us. He let Wally Carbo deliver the message.
Oh, wow.
And Wally Carbo said, Verne thinks you guys aren't big enough. Okay, thank you very much. That was the last time they were booked in Florida, too, by the way.
I bet. I imagine so. Now, we talked about earlier about you guys, working with Dusty and Dick Murdoch in Kansas City, and I know you probably worked with them other times as well, but in late 84, early 85, when you guys went to the WWF, y'all worked with Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch, and I always thought they were a really great team that don't get talked about enough. How was it working with those guys as a team there?
Well, you're exactly right. Adrian Adonis just added a different dimension to Dickie, and somebody Dickie could play off of because the north-south connection and all that stuff. And but Adrian was one of those guys that was an old school worker that could, he was big. He wasn't really in greatest shape in the world, but you could not blow that guy up in the ring. I mean, you work your ass off, and he'd stay right there with you. He had the speed and the power of Murdoch. Those two guys just gelled so well together. Their styles just blended so well together. It was really, I mean, other than the guys like Murdoch and Adon or Ricky Steamboat Youngblood, the two Funks, that team right there falls right there with some of our greatest overall matches I think we ever had. And I'm really proud of what we did there. We went in with the idea we were only going to be there for a short time because we were taking some people's places, and Vince just happened to put us together with Dickie and Adrian and saw how we clicked, and he married us all over the United States of America then. And I think we probably worked on 60 out of the 90 matches, 98 plus matches that we had there together.
Yeah, that was great stuff. And people talk about the Adrian Adonis and Jesse Ventura team, and I mean, they were good in their own way, but Jesse Ventura wasn't, near the worker of Murdoch. I just thought they were a superior team. And then even in like the vignettes and the entertainment stuff that Vince was doing with them, they were hilarious. That stuff where him and Dick are out on the street, and he's showing Dick around, New York and all that. Just they
different personalities. They're totally different personalities of each other, and then they blended, and they saw what they could do work wise together. So that respect as a team that grew so close to each other.
Now, forgive me if you've answered this before. I've always wondered about this, and I haven't really seen anywhere where you've talked about it. Maybe there's a reason for it. But now there's a tag team on the Northern Independents, Mark and Jamin Pugh, who came up through Ring of Honor, and they were known as Mark and Jay Brisco. Was that something that was you ever, talked to about that? Did you sign off on that? Or how do you feel about those guys?
Well, number one, how do I feel about the guys? I have no animosity toward the guys. The guys are one of them, unfortunately, has passed, and I feel for his brother there. They were good guys. I got to meet them, but we were really highly offended. I mean, Jack and I worked hard for the name Briscoe, and all of a sudden there's these guys that pop up. They're spelling their name a little bit different, and so but Jack was really hurt and disappointed that nobody ever contacted him, and just that. I mean, would we have said yes? You damn right we would have said yes. I mean, but not to be given that privilege of sharing your name. That's pretty damn personal. And Jack really never got over that, And when I met the guys, I told them, my brother, I said, I've kind of gotten over it, you guys, but my brother, he never got over it up to late in his life. And I said, it hurt him that nobody ever talked to you guys. And they apologized and all that stuff. But they said, by the time we were smart enough to figure out we should do it, it was already too late. So,
right.
But like I said, God bless Jay, I guess it was, that was killed in that horrific traffic accident, and Mark his brother. They're good people. I have nothing bad to say about the guys whatsoever. So
I've always wondered that because I was able to meet them a few times and had followed most of their careers and really thought a lot of them, and they were super nice guys, family guys.
Yeah.
But I was curious if you had because I just figured the age they were and where they were at. I thought there's no way that they reached out to Jack or Jerry and got this cleared. So I just always kind of wondered where you were at on that. So
I mean, we were easy to get in touch with, no matter where you are. Briscoe Brothers Body Shop. I mean, everybody in the world.
You had your phone number on a T-shirt on Raw.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't that we were hiding out in some dark woods or some swamp area down there in Florida?
I was fixing to say, Jerry, I don't think you or Jack was ever too hard to get a hold of it if somebody wanted to find you, was it?
In more ways than one we were. Right?
Oh, that's great. About Dick Murdoch, you was talking about traveling and the time I broke in. When I broke in, I got to travel with Murdoch a lot, Jerry. Now he was one character, wasn't he?
Oh man, Dickie. I mean, if you gotta put down a list of your all time favorites. I got a long list to tell you the truth, but I tell you, Dickie Murdoch right up there with the top guys. I mean, I loved him. A week before he died, he was sitting in our body shop. He was working for the rodeo, PBR, or whatever rodeo company it was. He had on a hat. I said, Dickie, I like that hat. You got it for free. I said, give it to me. He took it off and signed his name. I still got that hat buried somewhere around my house here. It's in my collection. I'm going to dig it out one day. It's always been one of my prized possessions there. But Dickie, I love Dickie to death. We were like Dusty. We traveled all over the place with Dickie, and the deal in New York just kind of happened by accident. And Michael Hayes gets mad at me when I share this story with him, but Andre the Giant fired the Freebird. That's a story everybody knows out there. So they were looking for some. They were working with Murdoch and Adonis, so they were looking for somebody to come in and just short time. So Vince called me and asked me if Jack and I would come in, because when we sold, we told him we weren't going to work. We wanted to retire for at least a year and refresh ourselves and try to refresh our minds and get rededicated to the business. And I just had my first son, so I wasn't really wanting to go on the road. But anyway, he called, and as a favor, we went up there. We were just supposed to go up there for a short time. We ended up staying about 8, 9 months and running the entire country with Dickie. And so it was kind of an accident. The first time he put us on, we'll move you guys to somebody else, And the first week we went around, the matches were so good. All 4 of us didn't want to be moved around to somebody else, so he stuck with that match, and it got all over the country, of course, just with the styles and everything. Dickie and Adrian were such a great tag team.
Oh yeah, and that Dickie was something else. Like I said, I just started in the business and everything, and I traveled with him, and he kind of took me under his wing and everything. But you talking about some times we worked for Watts down there, and the miles on the road, Jerry. But like I said, at that point we'd started flying, and they had that was right when Crockett was about ready to buy Watts out. But Murdoch told me we was in Oklahoma City one night, and he said, Sonny, he said, you want to go with me to my ranch? And I said, well, yeah. And he said, well, we'll get somebody to take us to the airport. And you just fly with me. And I said, well, okay. And so we get to the airport, and we're out there, and we get there, and there's this one little plane sitting on the runway. And I said, is that our plane, Dickie? And he said, yeah, that's old Joe, somebody that he's my pilot, and he's got my plane. So we've got 2 bags, they're both of our wrestling bags, and he made the guy carrying us out there to the airport stop and get a case of beer. So we've got 2 wrestling bags, me and Murdoch, and a case of beer. So
that's a lot of ass.
You ain't kidding. In the back seat, there's like 2 seats in the front and like one little a
sound like one of those little Piper Cubs.
Yeah, and so sitting beside of me is our 2 bags. And then here's me, just room for me. And then in the front's the pilot and Dickie. And in my lap is the case of beer. So I look at the pilot and I said, are we okay? And he said, yeah, we're right at the weight limit, but I think we're okay. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So Murdoch says, we don't get off the runway. Murdoch says, Dougie, open me a beer. Give me a beer. So he opened him one. I opened him one and handed it to him. No quicker than I opened him one. I opened me one because I was scared at that point. And we got up a little bit, and then Murdoch hits. I thought we was all right and everything. We're flying. And all of a sudden I look, and he lets this window lock down. It's like a school bus. He lets this window down, and he throws his empty beer can out the window.
Man.
So I tell him, I said, well, here, mine's empty too. So he throws it out, and he said, Sonny, open us 2 more. So we drunk that case of beer from Oklahoma City to Amarillo. I don't know how long it took us on that little plane, but we flew on that little plane. And the next day, the guy flew us back down somewhere in Oklahoma for the next town.
You know why he did that, so the pilot could find his way back, because he's a Texan, man.
That's probably right. But just some of the stories, but hanging out, like I said, Dickie, whenever we needed a car, he'd rent a car. So you just come with me, and I'd go with him, and me and him would stay together. But you talking about he was really good to me, and I've always thought what a great guy he was.
Yeah, Dickie, one of the guys that goes down in history as one of those really likable guys that very few people or none really have any bad things to say about him, and that's great because there isn't anything.
Oh yeah, like I said, I love Dickie, and man, you don't know, Jerry, how much I appreciate you being on here with us and telling us some stories. But I love the territory days, and like I said, knock on wood, at least I did get to start in '87, so it still was the territories. It was the end of the territory days, but still, but like the days you're talking about is the days that I love hearing stories about, and like I said, you and your brother and Terry and Dory and all the different guys that, like we talked about Brody, we've talked about Murdoch. They're all the different guys. It's just hard to believe for people to realize and believe the stories that you could tell or that I've saw happen and that are true. And it's hard for people to believe that they could be true.
You tell some of your friends outside the business some of these stories, they'll call you a blatant liar, man.
Hey, I've told Gene that. I said, Gene, I could sit here and tell you some stuff. I said, we get off here, get off the phone or whatever, and you think, how could that have even happened? But it did, right, Jerry?
Yeah, it sure did, man. There's too many of them that you can tell that people just say, there's no way in the world that could happen, but it happened.
What about Jerry? You was talking about Crockett Senior and the relationship y'all had, and you and Jerry working with him. Was there any from senior to junior? Was there any resemblance as far as business wise? Do you think, as far as the wrestling business wise, or I mean, in any
here's the transition, Doug. When Senior died, they had a big family meeting. Who would take over? Of course, Jimmy was in line to it, but Frances Crockett, she was married to a businessman there who was and who really doesn't get a lot of credit for kind of changing the philosophy of the territory. John Ringley is a name that's forgotten here. John took over. John was a young businessman there in Charlotte. Had a lot to do with their baseball franchise, promoting that. That was a highly successful AAA franchise for the Baltimore Orioles at the time. And John and Frances Crockett were running that. So they were the ones that that the family voted to take over from Jim Sr. So John's the one that started bringing in the Johnny Valentine, the Wahoo McDaniels, and the guys like that. He was the one that kind of changed the philosophy, trying to change it. Brought in George Scott as a booker, and they were trying to change it from a tag team territory to an individual territory, and they still keep the concept of the tag team strong. And so John was really the one, and then of course as they'd go along, John and Francis didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. They ended up getting divorced, and that's when Jimmy Jr. took over. So there was a transition in between the junior and senior, but it was always a smooth transition. That family, they didn't, if they had issues, they didn't air them in public around the boys, and that was a cohesive place and a mind. A lot of territory back in those days, they played mind games with you, and all
Right.
that stuff. But there was never any of that stuff with the crotchets going on there that you could feel, and you always
Right.
feel welcome there. So, and to me, I mean, that was probably one of the best run territories through transition errors and through the original with the different scenery. It was probably one of the most pleasant, even though the trips were brutal sometimes. You'd be down in Savannah, Georgia, and have to make Richmond, Virginia, Norfolk 400 or 500-mile trip, but that's what it was. That's what you signed up to do. So it wasn't their fault. It was just a big territory, and you knew that going in.
Right. That same like me and you talked about me starting for Watts. I didn't ever think you wouldn't hardly get in a hotel room because you was on the road for so many hours driving,
Yeah.
and then you had to get up and leave to get to, but I mean it was because the territory is so big, and you go from New Orleans to Oklahoma City to Shreveport to Baton Rouge, but I mean you was always traveling. But Jerry, I had just, like I said, when I started for him, I was just out of high school, and you made good money, worked for Watts, and they drew good money, and all the boys that worked for him and stayed busy made good money then, which, I mean, it was like you said, you knew what you was getting into and everything, and that was kind of the point of it. But man, like I said, me and Gene and Tommy appreciate you being on here with us, Jerry, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time or anything, but Gene, is there anything else that we hadn't got to that you've thought of?
Oh, wait a minute, Jim, before you get into your last segment. I'm disappointed, John, in you, Gene. I figured you would have this question there. The time that Michael Hayes dared me to kill Wildfire Tommy Rich and run over his ass. And since you guys don't want to know that story, I'll tell you, I'll leave you with the mic.
No, you got to tell us that story.
I tell you now, you guys weren't prepared for it. I don't want to shock it. Tommy even signed off for it here. But I wish Tommy was on so he could hear this.
Well, that's why I wasn't going to ask, since Tommy wasn't able to be on here.
No, he's actually fixing to be on here. Give me 1 second. Here you are, Tommy. Jerry's got a story that he wants to tell us.
Tommy, they were signing off, and they mentioned one. They wouldn't mention. Brent wouldn't bring up one story, so I kind of figured it was your fault, and I can't believe you had me on for almost an hour, and they did ask me the time that I attempted murder on you, thanks to Michael Hayes.
When we run up, when you about run over me?
He said when you about run over him, Jerry.
I said when I did run over your big ass, man. Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Tommy said busted the window out. Where'd he hit you at, Tommy?
I'll tell the story. Tommy was too drunk to remember it, so I'll tell the story. Speaking of drunk, I'm there to kill our meal ticket in Atlanta, Georgia.
Jerry said you was too drunk. He'd tell the story. But anyway, that's great. Say it was in West Virginia, Jerry?
Parkersburg, West Virginia, Tommy, at the old Holiday Inn Motel there. And Doug, I don't know if you ever seen there, or Gary's ever seen, but it's like a 2-level, the damn mountains, they terrace everything. The office was down here and the rooms were up here. So we pulled into the hotel, and we've been drinking, we've been partying. It was Michael Hayes, imagine that, being drunk, and Tommy Rich, imagine that, being drunk, and Gerald Brisco, imagine that, the three of them being together and being drunk. So we park our car, we go in, we want to drink some more. So the hotel bar and the Holiday Inn is closed, but the desk lady said across the street there's a Best Western that has a country and western band down there. So they're open until for a couple more hours. So we left the car. We did the right thing. We left the car parked, and we were too drunk to drive, and we walked across the street and listened to a great country and western band and all that stuff. We go back across. So we get in the car and we're gonna walk up the side of the mountain to a room. So Tommy get in the car. He said, I won't ride with you. I'll walk up. So me and Michael Hayes got in the car, and I said, can you believe that? He's pissed off at me. And he said, Michael Hayes looked at me like Michael does. Briscoe, you don't have a hair on your ass if you don't run over a damn thing. I had to pull that damn Lincoln Continental down the drive. I hit it. About the time I was squealing no charge, Tommy took around, his eyes got bigger than soccer. He jumped. Thank goodness he could still jump. He jumped. He hit the hood, rolled across, crashed my damn windshield out, rolled across the top of the hood and onto the ground. He wasn't moving. And Michael, hey, Briscoe, I think you just killed Wildfire. So by the time we got out of the car, of course, Wildfire was doing one of those that magic comebacks he always did, pulling himself up off the hood of the car. I'm all right. Fuck you guys. Fuck it. And he walked on up the damn hill and I said, he's all right. So I didn't kill him. So that's me trying to commit homicide, vehicular homicide on our meal ticket.
So, Mr. Briscoe, do you think that's where Eddie and Lawler got that idea at Memphis to run over Lawler with the car?
We did it a hell better. We did it a hell of a lot better than they did. Of course, we were drunk and they were sober. That makes a difference.
I think the question everybody wants to know is when Tommy come up off the ground, had he gigged?
He didn't have to, man. He was bleeding everywhere. Right? His elbows everywhere.
Bless his heart. That's wild.
Next day he shows up at work. He's all scratched up and everything. What happened to you? Oh, I don't know. I fell down. Something like that. He wasn't going to stooge me off. Tommy wouldn't stooge me off.
There we go. We talked about that earlier. No snitching.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Briscoe, man, the word legend gets thrown around a lot and misused in wrestling, but you and your brother Jack are definitely two of the biggest legends in wrestling. And, man, what an honor it's been to have you on the show. And, man, we just really appreciate your time. And
appreciate it, Doug and Tommy. You guys got a great deal going there. Very entertaining.
If you enjoyed this show, another show that's just a couple of guys laid back telling stories. Of course, you can catch Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw. Man, y'all have got a great podcast going on. Y'all have had it going for a while. And you recently had Doug on, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had Doug on. We're really proud of that. We're really proud of it. We started it during COVID, man. We've been going. We're getting close to 200 podcasts now. We just started another one on Backstage Pass on Patron pay service. It's what were they thinking? It's really weird, different circumstances, and like what were they thinking when Mick Foley got thrown off the cage or other strange things that's happening in not only WWE but in this great world of professional wrestling, because there's a lot of those what were they thinking moments, So John and I explore that and try to add a little humor to it. So join us on Backstage Pass.
Absolutely. Folks, check that out. It's appointment listening for me every week. I really enjoy y'all's podcast. Y'all have had Tommy on there in the past as well. So make sure you guys
Tommy on. Tommy was a star for us. Doug was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you can't do, we had the old Bo James on there, who was fantastic, man. I mean, the history. You can't have the history show unless you have some participants in that Gilbert family, man. You talk about the Briscoe family. That Gilbert family up there in that era up there in that territory up there, they were as hot as anybody in the business there. And they don't get the credit for three of them, man. And they were ready to go each and every night, no matter what opponent they were thrown. They went in the ring and they worked their asses off and had those star matches like the kids don't want to look for nowadays. And it was a pleasure. It's a pleasure pleasure being friends with the Gilbert family. That's all I got to say, man. I've known them all, and you walk, like I said, there's acquaintances and there's friends. I count the Gilbert family as friends in my business.
Jerry, I've been looking forward to this because there's just questions I want to ask you. Like I said, but I just wanted to talk to you about to me, the great thing about the business. I love the wrestling business. I always will. My dad, I grew up watching him. My brother, y'all guys, all y'all guys. Like I said, you talk about families in wrestling, the Briscos, the Funks. I mean, that's when you're in a different family, that's the families that you looked up to. And my brother really looked up to you and your brother. He looked up to Dory and Terry. I've looked up to all of y'all. But like I said, y'all guys, when you say y'all's names, and like I said, you might not go in there and beat the guy up like they told you to, but you went in there and done your job and done a heck of a job at it.
Thank you again for your time, Mr. Briscoe.
Thank you. See you down the road, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right, you too.
But hey, guys, listen, thanks for listening to Dangerous Conversations. And hey, we'll talk to y'all later, and peace.
We're in Jack Briscoe's dressing room underneath the Mid-South Coliseum, where we've just witnessed a sensational heavyweight championship match. Standing beside us right now, the wrestling brother of Jack Briscoe, Jerry Brisco. And Jerry, I was kind of surprised to see you here tonight because there was no advance notice that you were going to be here with us.
Well, as you know, and all the fans know, a couple of weeks back, I got hit with an object that Jerry Lawler acquired somehow, and I went and I told Jack this was my purpose, actually, for being in Memphis. I told Jack about it, exactly what happened, and I had no commitments, and Jack said, why don't you come down to Memphis with me, and let's just make sure that we get a fair shake down there. And, you know, it's just luckily that we did have an outstanding referee in the ring, such as we did tonight, to take notice exactly what happened. I did interfere. I did it purposely. I become emotionally involved when my brothers in the ring. We're sort of a family unit, and we feel that the World Heavyweight Championship belongs to the Briscoe family and not one individual. So I do my best to help Jack scout his opponents and to just more or less be at the right place.
Jerry, I noticed that after the bout was over with and the decision had been reversed and Jack retained his heavyweight title, you got into a battle with Jerry Lawler, and when leaving the ring and back, Lawler was mumbling about the fact that you were the one that cost him the heavyweight title and that he wanted to get you back in the ring once again. He wasn't satisfied because you interfered in tonight's action.
Well, let me say this right now to Jerry Lawler. I'm issuing a challenge to you, Lawler. You've got wrestling ability. You've got all kinds of ability, but you stoop so low in a sport such as professional wrestling to bring something into the ring, something that's not a part of your body, something that you can permanently injure somebody with. Well, I tell you what, Jerry Lawler, I don't need anything like that. I've got myself, I've got my wrestling ability, I've got my wrestling knowledge. I'm going to stick to that, Lawler. But I guarantee you one thing. You bring anything that you want to into that ring. You bring that manager, Sam Bass of yours, into the ring. I tell you, I've had it, Lawler. If you want to go in there and if you want to wrestle me, I'm all game, brother. But if you want to go out there and you want to fight, I tell you, I got some fire inside of me, and I'm going to let it explode, Lawler. And as far as you go, Bass, you jump up on that ring, you jump up on that apron, and you're going to get treated the same way as your boy Jerry Lawler.
So if Jerry Lawler says he'll step in the ring with Jerry Brisco, you're all for it.
I've got an open date. Lawler, you name the date, and I'll be there.
There you hear it from Jerry Brisco. This is Lance Russell at the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum.
All right, fans, big one coming up at Madison Square Garden Friday night, December the 28th. It is going to be the annual World Wrestling Federation's Holiday Spectacular. Hulk Hogan on the card to meet the Iron Sheik. Snuka, Tonga, what a team, meeting Piper Orton. In addition, you recall what happened in front of a national television audience. Victory for Jack and Jerry Brisco over Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch in a non-title bout. But gentlemen, Jack Brisco to my immediate left, Jerry to my right. This will be for all of the marbles. This is going to be a title bout with those straps on the line.
Well, we finally got what we came for. As you know, Mean Gene, when we first came, we said we want the championships. You know, we've done everything that there is in professional wrestling. We've won every championship that possibly a tag team can win, except one. Murdoch and Adonis, you're the holders of that one championship that we haven't won. And you imagine if you're out there and you're thinking just one thing in your mind, and it's been in our mind for the last 6 months, that we're training, especially for you, Murdoch and Adonis. We know what to do. We know that you're susceptible for that figure four now. We know how to clamp it on you. We got your number now.
You know, gentlemen, with that very impressive win on national television, I'm certain there's tremendous concern and apprehension on the part of Adrian Adonis and his partner, Dick Murdoch. Wouldn't you agree to that, Jack?
I certainly would. And there's one thing that we had to prove, and that was that we could defeat Murdoch and Adonis. And we went out there and we proved it right in front of the whole world that we defeated these men. We feel like we're a better tag team than these two men, and we're ready for the championship. That's the only tag team championship my brother and I have never won, and we're out to get it, and we're serious about it.
I thank you very much. Jack Brisco, Jerry Brisco, a couple of great amateurs turned professional, now the World Wrestling Federation, and they're going to be here in the Big Apple in Madison Square Garden, challenging Dick Murdoch and Adrian Adonis for those coveted Tag Team Championship belts Friday night, December the 28th, World Wrestling Federation Holiday Spectacular.
Before we get out of here, I just want to take a moment to remind everyone, if you have an upcoming wrestling show, autograph signing, collector show, Comic-Con, or any event or booking that you would like to inquire about the services of Dangerous Doug Gilbert and or Tommy Wildfire Rich, just send us an email at DougGilbertPodcast@Outlook.com, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible to get more information on your event and do the best we can to make that happen. Also, if you are interested in advertising your event, your business, your product to the listeners of Dangerous Conversations, as well as to promote your event, business, or product across all our social media platforms, you can send that inquiry to DougGilbertPodcast@Outlook.com. We would love to work together with you to get that out there to the listeners of Dangerous Conversations. Remember to check out DougGilbertPodcast.com. There you can find links to all things related to this podcast, as well as Doug and Tommy themselves. You'll find a link to the Dangerous Conversations Facebook page and the Dangerous Conversations Twitter, now known as X. And we're always posting content daily, involving the Gilbert family, Tommy Rich, all sorts of things from their career. We got magazine articles, videos, pictures, you name it. We're posting new content every single day. Make sure you follow so you don't miss out on any of that. Plus, you can follow Doug and Tommy's personal Facebook pages on there. Dangerous Doug Gilbert. You can search that on Facebook. You can also search Tommy Wildfire Rich. They both have Facebook pages. And Doug does have an X page as well, and you can follow them there. But if you really want to help support, you can go to the Gilbert Family Pro Wrestling Tees store, which there's a link to there on the DougGilbertPodcast.com, and you can find t-shirts of Doug, Eddie, and their famous father, Tommy Gilbert, as well. Also, Tommy Rich is going to be having some t-shirts coming up very soon. Follow him on Facebook. We'll be talking about him here. But look for some cool new Tommy Wildfire Rich t-shirts coming out soon that you can partake in as well. Also, if you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on the platform of your choice. It would really help us in building up the podcast for the future. Plus, it helps us know what you like, what you don't like, where we need to take this podcast moving forward. Also, if you want to see a whole bunch of matches, promos, and angles, a lot of the ones that you're going to hear us talk about on this very podcast, you can go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@RetroWrestlingArchive. Of course, it's linked right there at DougGilbertPodcast.com, and you will find a ton of matches featuring Eddie Gilbert, Tommy Gilbert, Doug Gilbert, Tommy Wildfire Rich. There's playlists of all them that feature hundreds of matches of each of them. So make sure you go check that out. And not just of them, there are thousands, literally, at this point, of videos from wrestling from across the territory days. You name it. If we don't have the video uploaded to our channel, we at least have organized you a playlist of just about every territory, every show that's out there. You can find it in one convenient location there on YouTube at the Retro Wrestling Archive. Plus, don't forget, you can find all things related to my popular Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast at uswapodcast.com. And last but certainly not least, we are proud to be a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Go on over to WrestleCopia.com to check out all the great pro wrestling related podcasts and various content that our friend Ray Russell provides you. You'll be glad you did. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich.
In the heart of Tennessee, born with pride, Doug and Tommy taking rings in stride. Memphis legends never backing down. Wrestling warriors, they wear the crown. You scurry away, glory in their veins. Fighting legends breaking chains. In the squared circle they made their name. Podcast champions, it's their claim to fame. On the mic they roar, on the map they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more. Podcast kings ruling the waves. Memphis wrestling raising the stage. From title belts to Hall of Fame, Doug and Tommy carved the name. Fists of fury and hearts of gold. Every story, every fight retold. Tales of glory, laughter, cry. Tennessee warriors with hearts open wide. In the ring or on the air, legends living without a care. On the mic they roar, on the mat they soar. Dangerous conversations, fans wanting more.